So I picked up 3-star Wasport. I'd like to have all the SR plus. Don't have Tazar. Wasn't thinking that much about it. It's only 3 stars. But as it turns out, this thing has all sorts of crazy cheese potential, particularly in PvE. Now to give credit where credit's due, I didn't figure out how good it was cheesing at Training Ground. I believe it was Quixacat that first figured it out. I heard about it through Skins from NA1, who was showing how he did 30 billion in Training Ground using only his 6-star Wasport. Right now I'm talking over a few second gap silence to try and line this frustrating ass video back up properly. It's this 4th ability here. If you look at that, it's doing 0.2% max hit points damage, which is OP in Training Ground to begin with, every 10th of a second. And paralyzes them. I don't think that's hard CC. I think that's like reduced attack speed and crit or something like that. And it also has a 5% chance to stun every 10th of a second rather, and it lasts for 1 second. There's a 50% chance by the time the stun wears off that another stun will have been reapplied. So eventually it'll die. It's not going to permanently stun lock units around it, except for in Training Ground. They don't hit that hard, so it's not going to die, and you're going to do a ton of damage. But as you may have noticed, I only did 15 billion, and the 2% HP, as well as how often it ticks every 10th of a second, does not scale. Also, my fucking thing's loading constantly. It's so annoying. Alright, so I couldn't figure out exactly why starring it up was making it do so much more damage. This one just does plague every 12 seconds and some damage, but it also, and this doesn't scale, every time it gets a crit, attack speed increase 5%, 20 stacks, so up to 100% attack speed, lasts 10 seconds. So as long as you're critting at least once every 10 seconds, you're going to stack up 100% attack speed, which is important when it comes to this. I realize that this is where the extra damage is coming in, that starring it up will get you, because the percent chance of this proccing does scale. You'll see there it's at 32% at level 6. I believe it goes up 2% a level. So you summon these wasps. You have a chance to summon a wasp when it attacks. And these wasps, when they die, or after 40 seconds when they just disappear, they do 4% max HP to everything around them. In addition, it can dispel buffs on this unit. It increases units damage per wasp for all fortress, itself included. Presumably the bees as well, or wasps or whatever. Has a 20% chance it doesn't scale. And the last scale we haven't looked at yet, I think it's just like crit. Yeah, extra crit. So here's just a basic Training Ground cheese run. Selamir's hotspot. You'll notice here I got about 15 billion. Just under 9 billion was done by the Wasport. The Plague Wasp damage is counted separate. Each one of these did about 22 million damage. So, next order of business is to figure out the best way to spawn a shit ton of wasps. Drakon can do it, as you can see here, assuming that he can clone the flower and not a wasp, and even tell the difference. That's why I don't have the units right up on the flower. I have them marked with fast attack, which I was casting after each clone. And I did get a bunch of clones. You see them here. So I know I wasn't missing. The other obvious choice for spawning lots of wasps would be Galu. I have them marked with the same fast attack. One thing to bear in mind, though, is it's not just the attack speed, but the precision is also increasing the crit, which, again, boosts attack speed in this particular instance. So I got 72 with Drakon and 88 with Galu, so not a huge difference. If you're in a situation where you can actually get the flower to clone, Drakon could be pretty useful for spamming a bunch of wasps. Now, in addition to the number of wasps you spawn, the other half of the equation is how much damage they do. That's why I took the emblems off for this test here, which shows that Wasport stats don't affect the wasp damage. There are other ways to boost wasp damage, though, which I show in this series of tests. First here I precision one and not the other to show that they can in fact crit. Then I also show here that buffs on them once they've spawned can increase their damage, as well as debuffs on their target will increase their damage. Now, the reason I was so initially interested in this is I've been trying to clear Training Ground for a while, kill all the units, and they have a ton of native health regeneration, so you got to kill them really quick. So I thought to myself, hey, if I could spawn 25 of these little fucking wasps, and which it shouldn't be out of the question because Training Ground units aren't going to kill them, but I could kill them all at once with a death ripple. and do 100% HP damage, which would be pretty friggin' cool. Not only would it help me finally clear the training ground, but I'm sure there's plenty of other instances where I could come up with a use of for 100% HP damage, particularly when heals are involved. But as you can see here, I tried it, and I don't even see the hit point bar move, much less do anything close to 100%. So I thought maybe there's a real short internal cooldown to stop him from proccing all at once, or maybe it doesn't work if you kill him yourself, or maybe it's just another example of the fuckery that Training Ground is infamous for, operating under a set of rules separate from everything else. So I decided to test it backwards. My Bone Dragon has 4 million hit points and 26% damage reduction. So 4% of 4 million, 160k. Applied damage reduction should do 118,000 and change if it's actually doing 4% max HP damage. And as the stat screen shows here, it actually did twice that. It did 250,000. Which means if I got 16 of these guys to die all at once, it should one-shot my Bone Dragon. And it did, actually. I did a test, and Shinova Titan thundered a whole stack of them and one-shot her own Bone Dragon. It was funny. Unfortunately, I was not recording. So I tried it in EI. And it worked, as you can see. So then I set up this formation and decided to start sweeping my way up DI. And Wasport was MVP every single match, all the way up to 90 without fail. And bear in mind, this is a 3-star Wasport. Not only that, but all the damage done by the Wasps aren't added to its total. And it's still getting MVP without that. For 90 levels in a row, minus the buff levels and stuff. So then 89 here I did with Galu. And you can see I frenzy the Wasport initially to get some wasps out there. And then again, because I'm waiting to do it on my backups, but they don't spawn. But I'm not like focusing it or like doing anything to force it into MVP. And just competing, with my elves, my marksmen, my best chargers, and holding its own. Now, I didn't beat 89 on the first try, and on this loss here, I noticed something. Usually when everything but your range dies, you don't have long to live. But the Ice Elemental goes down, and the Wasport stays up for another 20 seconds, and it's not even slowing the Paladins down on the way there with any Wasp spawns. I do use Petrify on it, then it also is attempting to stun every 10th of a second. And when it does stun, units coming out of a stun reacquire a new target, and say there's a Wasp in front of you, and maybe that'll get targeted instead of the Wasport itself. And even though they weren't getting slowed on the way there by Wasps, that does happen a lot, which gave me an idea. So I actually did level 91 with Mephala of all people. And what I did is I used the Wasps basically to tank. Even though they get one shot, if they're in her shield, they're not going to get killed at all, and the enemies will keep beating on it. Meanwhile, more Wasps are regenerating, and my ranged are killing everything. And it worked pretty well, actually. I beat the level like that, and I should clarify, I've never finished EI, I've never gotten to level 100. Once I get to past level 90, it gets pretty difficult for me. I think maybe 95's the highest I've ever gotten. And I certainly have never done it with Mephala. But with a rush tactic mark for some damage, and he's an inexhaustible supply of little wasps doing the tanking, cleaned up pretty easy. I did the next level 92 with Galu, and I'm going to speed it up a little bit because this video is starting to drag on because there's so many ways in which this unit is incredibly useful. I haven't even gotten to some of the best ones yet. So, 92, using Galu, my go-to homeboy. I'm still using Wasport, that's the whole point of this. But then another potential strategy occurred to me based on the way she's in Training Ground with him. I figure, well, if he's stunning everything around him, and when they come out of stuns, they have a chance to hit all these little wasps being spawned instead of the unit itself, then on top of that, I could use crowd control spells, and the whole time he's doing percent HP damage to everything around him 10 times a second. So I decided to try that for level 93 here. I went with Cieli because, of course, if you've seen my other videos, Cieli's amazing at crowd control. So I let the chargers through. I got Frost Ring here marked because I'm casting Water Arrow on them. It's going to slow them. That works as a crowd control. And you can see their damage numbers on them. They're taking, every 10th of a second, they're getting blasted for percent HP damage. My backups come. I managed to keep the Wasport alive here. And I'm so used to my spell pattern for crowd control with her that I'm going to Tranquil Rain here, even though Ice Elemental's not around a true ice wall. So there's potential here, and I want to do it again, and not to fuck it up. And of course, EI's over. But I did manage to kind of demonstrate a couple different strats with Wasport, to use him with Mephala, to basically tank without a tank, or to use crowd control and let melee get close to him and burn him with percent HP. As well as just the fact that his damage is pretty damn good to get MVP for fucking 90 levels in a row. But there's a couple more big ways to cheese PvE with them. As you can see right now in the background, I'm wearing a Steadwick defense. You may notice here that I do not have any crowd control spell marked. I'm using Galu, and I'm going to keep the wall up, so I don't need any tanks, and I'm going to clear the whole goddamn thing without a red dragon or a titan or adjudicator. Now, granted, my score is not very good, but I have another video on how Steadwick is scored. I wasn't trying to get points, I was trying just to find out what's after this second bone dragon here that I'd never killed before. And I thought the end of Trial of Angels was anticlimactic, and we never saw that black dragon they talk about in the splash screen. Here I'm going to show a couple clips as to why Wasport's so useful here. I have him in the top lane. So you can see you got the bottom half locked up with the ice wall there, and the top half is getting tanked by these little wasps right there. Not that trash usually takes down the wall, but drills do, and it blocks the drills too. And bosses, that's why I have it in top lane. See, look at right here. I should get my wall smashed, but instead he kills a wasp, which hurts him. And then also on the bosses, because I'm not using Archmage or Beholder or have Earth Arrow or anything marked for crowd control, I'm relying on one set of Broken Prophecy emblems, which I have on my Storm Elemental, to stunlock the boss, which is pretty effective. But I do run the risk, if he comes out of the stun for just a second, he will one-shot my Devil. But there's always a chance they'll one-shot a Wasp instead. Also, because the boss is stun-locked and not killing anything, or only one thing at a time, you can build up a reserve of Wasps. There is a downside to this, though. If you push top lane too much, you end up tanking a boss or a drill farther than any of your units besides Wasport can reach to hit, to stun and kill, like what just happened right here. But it's avoidable. Just think of the top lane like a lane in a MOBA like League of Legends, and don't push it too far. The edge of the scoreboard is a good reference point. You want to be aware of it, because if your Devil dies, then you can't clear the trash between the waves quick enough to get to that exciting ending we just saw. So, finally, to Steadwick Siege. So, as if I hadn't already found enough uses for a 3-star unit, Wasport, come to find out, can actually solo these, or at least most of them at 3 stars, presumably all of them at 6. You can see the gist of it here. Just like archers in Crypt are always shooting at units that are dead before the arrows land, here, before the arrows land on a bug, the next one's already spawned. So the first one I did was Necro, and for some reason, if I did Wasport by himself, he would get silenced, but if I used Storm Elemental, he wouldn't. Storm Elemental also is 5-star woke, so it boosts my Wasport's attack speed significantly every time I cast an air spell, which in turn boosts the number of wasps that I'm spawning. I could use just one tank to make sure I build up enough wasps at the start, but the artifact summons were good enough for that. So you can see even with 2 units, I dropped the wall pretty quick because they're attacking so fast. And Storm Elemental does hit hard. And then they just clean up. Azure Dragon comes here for the lull in between, the frenzies and the fast attack and whatnot, supercharging my wasp spawn rate. And you'll see I just recently hit 102, so I haven't even done these difficulties yet. And only a few people have. I see people asking for help on them. I guess they're more difficult. Anyhow, the next day was Inferno, and I tried it with just the Wasport, as there's no sounds to worry about. And as you can see here, all by his lonesome, 3 stars, and artifact skeletons, and Azure Dragon, and a whole bunch of wasps. Now, I actually don't finish it this way, where I quit once I take down the wall, and that's because it's not super fast doing it by yourself, and the leaderboard, even though there's no rewards for this, I like to be on top when I can. And that goes by time. So what I thought I would do then is the same thing, only have a bunch of ranged units back there, like I'm about to do here on this castle one. Now some of them will move a little bit farther forward, and because there are targets in all the lanes, some of them are going to get melted, but not as quick as that wall got melted. What was that, 10 seconds? So I do lose some units, but mostly they're just shooting the wasps. And it takes the level out pretty easy. You get This was one try, and I finished second, I believe. Now, the problem with doing that on Inferno is you kill the wall so goddamn fast that their Ifrit's flame shield is still up. So your units all instantly die, not from getting hit, but just from burning themselves. I tried to bring Devil and have him dispel some flame shields, and his withering kills him even if I mark Bloodlust before he even moves. So, I mean, whatever, there's other strategies for siege and it's not that important, but I just wanted to show, it's just one more example. This unit has tons of utility, and it's not worthless for PvP either. In fact, let me show this here really quick. I was sniping first place arena from this Dragon Mutair guy who has over 2 million power advantage on me, but I got it set up pretty sweet. And I have the Behemoth in top lane specifically because the Kilgore Global gives him that invulnerability so he won't die, and the Waspport will stay targeted on him instead of switching to my Devil and fucking up my plan, which is to completely annihilate him with my Devil. As you can see here, I already killed the Green Dragon through the AA Angel, and now I just dropped the Black Dragon too. And it's not even 15 seconds into the fight. Jump to the Waspport here. Oh, that stupid stun lands, and it's trying to re-land 10 times a second. And even though the Waspport is still shooting the Behemoth, I'm not dead just yet, but backups come and finish me off, and I still would have. That was way more than a second too, so it definitely landed more than one stun on me. I did beat him very soundly too, but that's only because I could retry it. The Waspport stopped me a couple times. So there you have it. Obviously all SR plus units are useful, but this one seems uniquely useful even if you're not running Fortress and even if you don't star it up. If I hadn't finished TOA already, I would have found uses for it there too. In fact, I did use it in my 17.3 video of ways to beat it without Zydar. It can solo Siege, it can solo the best score in Training Ground, incredibly useful for defense and EI. This video is my longest yet, longer than I wanted it to be. Thanks for sitting through it, but the thing's just too goddamn useful in too many ways. Thanks for watching.